believe you are enjoying your learning from the comfort of your homes. Stay tuned as we continue. Previously, we've discussed growth as a property and function of a living cell. We will continue on irritability as a function and property of a living cell. I still remain my humble self, Mr. Sule Emmanuel. Objectives. At the end of the lesson, we should be able to define the term irritability, state the meaning of a stimulus and a response. We should also be able to name the three major types of responses or movements, and we should be able to explain them briefly with appropriate examples. Definition of irritability. Irritability, otherwise known as sensitivity, could be defined as the ability of the cells of living organisms to respond to stimuli. A stimulus is a change in the cell's environment that can make it change its activity. And this change in the activity of a cell is known as its response to the stimulus. So when we talk about irritability, we're talking about sensitivity, the ability of an organism to respond to a stimulus. And this stimulus is talking about a change in cell's environment that can make it change in its activity. And the change in the activity of a cell is known as response to the stimulus. Now, organisms generally respond to the following abiotic factors. One of the abiotic factors is a change in light intensity, a change in temperature, a change in humidity. I hope you know what is this temperature, humidity, intensity is all about. Humidity is talking about moisture content of the atmosphere, moisture, the amount of moisture present in a particular place. And then temperature is talking about the degree of coldness and hotness of an area. Gravity, touch, chemicals in their environment, including food and water. These are the abiotic factor to which an organism responds. Means of detecting stimulus. Animals use special cell structure called receptors, especially in higher animals like human beings, on their skin, or may be in form of special sense organs such as the eyes and ears. But in plants, there are no special receptor but for detecting external stimulus. The protoplasm of a young cell in the roots and shoot apices usually act as a receptor of external stimulus. While cells in the mimosa plant respond to touch, animals generally respond rapidly to stimulus, while plants respond slowly to it. We're talking about means to detect stimulus here. Plants have some special cell structures on their body, particularly on their skin, like touch receptor, chemo, other forms of receptor like thermoreceptor. Then in plant, no special cell structures for detecting except the protoplasm of their young shoot and roots. Types of responses or movements. Nastic response or nastic movement, otherwise known as nastism. We have tactic response, which is called taxis, and we have the third type of responses called the tropic response, which is also called tropism. We're going to be taking a look at each and every one of these types of responses and see how we can distinguish within them. Nastic response or nastism. This is a type of response shown by a part of plant. Take note, a part of plant is responding to non-directional stimuli here, such as a change in light intensity, temperature, or humidity. You can take a look at these abiotic factors. They're very important: light intensity, temperature, or humidity. The response movements are also non-directional. Take note of this: they are non-directional response, and it is the parts of plants that move or respond to the stimulus. Examples of these Nastic responses or movements are itemized below. 1. Closing of the leaflets of a flamboyant tree. This closing of the leaflet of a flamboyant tree is also known as sleep movement due to low light intensity. At low light intensity, the leaflet of flamboyant tree tends to close. That's what we refer to as sleep movement. Closing of the morning glory flower at low light intensity. Folding of the leaflet of the mimosa plant when it is touched. The second type of response is tactic movement, which is also called taxis. And this type of response is exhibited when a whole organism moves directly towards or away from a stimulus. You see, when you compare this to the Nastic one, we consider the first one. It is the part of the plant that moves. Here, it is the whole organisms that moves. Now, in this tactic movement, the stimulus comes from a particular direction, and the direction of the response is related to that of the stimulus. This type of response is said to be directional, and it is positive if the organism moves towards the stimulus, and negative if it moves away from it. Let's look at some of the examples of tactic movement or taxis. One is phototaxis, from the word photo. The word photo there is talking about light. So talking about phototaxis now, we're talking about response of an organism to light. So in phototaxis, as we have in when an earthworm wriggles away from light. So when it's moving away from this light stimulus now, we target a negative phototaxis. And when Euglena and Chlamydomonas swim towards low light intensity, they are moving towards it. In this case now, we call it positive phototaxis. And away from light of high intensity. So since they are moving away from lights that are of high intensity, it is called negative phototaxis. But if they move towards it, it is positive, like I said earlier in the definition. Phototaxis. Then let's go to chemotaxis, as in when sperm swim towards the chemicals produced by the cells in a moss plant. So it's swimming towards the chemical produced by the moss plant. It is positive chemotaxis. That is response to chemical. Phototaxis, response to light. Then third example is thermotaxis, as in when mobile bacteria swim from cold region to warm regions. So in this case, we're talking about response to temperature now. So the motile bacteria swim from cold region to warm regions. So since it's moving towards a particular response, that is warm region, it is called positive thermotaxis. Now the third type of response is tropic movement or tropic response, otherwise known as tropism. This is exhibited when a part of plant moves in response to a directional stimulus. This is part of plant like the first Nastic movement, but it is a part that moves directly towards the stimulus. But the part moving in Nastic is non-directional, so you should be able to get the difference. The direction of the stimulus is related to that of the response, and it is positive if the plant part grows towards the stimulus, and negative if the plant part grows away from it. Tropisms are very slow growth movements, like the movement of the shoot and the root of plant. They're very slow. You can hardly see them, but they are actually happening. Examples of tropism or tropic movements are shown thus. Phototropism. When we talk about photo, we're talking about light. So as in when shoot of green plant bend towards light. This is exactly a perfect example of positive phototropism. So when the shoot of green plant bend towards light, when the direction of light, it is called phototropism. We have the second one, geotropism. As in when roots of plant bend towards gravity, the gravitational force. You hardly see a root moving upward towards the sunlight. Rather, it moves downward towards the force of gravity. So the root of plant is responding positively to the force of gravity inside the soil. Then the next example is hydrotropism. The hydro there is water. Hydrotropism, the response of part of plant towards moisture, towards water content. So when roots bend towards moisture, it's an example of hydrotropism. We have thigmotropism, as in when tendrils of a climbing plant twine around support, like a yam a yam plant, twining around a stalk when it is growing. So the tendril is coming out, is responding positively to the touch on the body of the stalk. So when tendrils of a climbing plant twine around a support as a positive response to touch, while root tips grow away from stone. When the root is growing downwardly in response to the force of gravity, as it touches the stone, it bends away from the stone. That is showing a negative response to touch. The moment the root of a plant gets to touch the stone inside the soil, it moves away from that stone. That's how we tell it as negative response. Thank you, and I want to believe you have learned a lot from this lesson. We'll stay tuned till the next lesson.